Oh, sorry. Just so I didn't catch that, did you? Yes. Oh no, you didn't. Oh, damn it!
Beautiful.
Okay.
It's a conspiracy!
Welcome, everyone, to the pilot episode of It's a Conspiracy. This is the podcast where we lay out the beliefs behind selected conspiracy theories, alternative accounts, legends, myths, and more. We will do our best to explain these without offering opinions on validity, accuracy, etc. until the end of the episode, where we will give a brief opinion or comment on each. I'm your host, Andrew, and I am by no means an expert in this field, or any other. I'm simply interested in knowing what it is that the supporters of these theories believe. All of the information presented here was gathered online and is probably riddled with inaccuracies because I'm kind of an idiot and this has all been thrown together kind of at the last minute. Joining me today is my good friend Charlie, who will be presented with these theories and will interject as he sees fit. Charlie, you want to say hi?
I didn't quite see it fit interjecting.
Sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. Hey,
I mean to put you on the spot.
Hey, everybody. I'm Charlie.
Yeah, and today we're going to be covering 3 fascinating theories that you may have heard of before. Charlie, just tell me if you've heard of any of these 3 theories. Number 1, the flat. Oh, sorry. Just a yes or no. No need to, ramble on and on and on.
You got it.
The flat Earth theory.
Yes.
The reptile people theory.
Yes.
The Polybius theory.
No.
Oh. Charlie, I'm going to try to include my references in the description. Okay, so if you go to the episode description and you're like, where did he get that something from? Then, yeah, it's going to be in there.
Showing your work.
Yeah, I'm going to show my work because a lot of this stuff, although I should say a lot of these links are going to be from Wikipedia. And by the time you get there, it could be, somebody might have gone in and changed things. That's hard to say. All right, so first off, we are going to talk about the flat Earth theory.
Flat earthers.
Once I decided that I had to go with it being flat based on my gut feeling and common sense evidence, then I was looking around to see who was making a working model of the flat Earth, and I couldn't find him anywhere.
The flat Earth theory is pretty self-explanatory in concept. It is the belief that the Earth is not shaped like a sphere, but rather a completely flat disk. Some supporters of this theory believe the flat disk is a never-ending plane, and some believe, and this is what we will be discussing today, that Antarctica surrounds the disk, and I'll explain that in a little bit. That sounds kind of strange. Basically, the Earth is like a snow globe with a flat bottom. The surface itself is like a CD, but not a sphere. It's round, but it's not a sphere, and the North Pole is right at the center of it. This idea has roots going back a long way. A lot of references in the Bible and other books. And a long time ago, people would look at the horizon or the ocean and be like, well, it looks flat to me. But this really took as a valid theory. This took off when someone from England, and I'm just going to butcher this name here, Samuel Rowbotham, whose main idea is kind of what we're going to talk about here. He claimed to have proved the Earth was flat by means of a simple experiment involving a stationary observer and a friend of his on a boat. Now, I'm gonna recreate this experience here. So, Charlie, I'm gonna have to ask you to use your imagination. You're on a big body of water. I'm on the beach, and as usual, I've got a pair of binoculars, and I'm looking at you from a distance.
As usual.
Okay, as usual. You're in a boat, clothes on, clothes off, whatever. Sitting on this boat, headed away from me, and I'm looking at you through the binoculars. As usual, it's just another Tuesday. Nothing weird about it.
Peeping Andrew.
Yeah, Peeping Andrew. You're flying away on this boat. And I'm thinking, now, if the Earth is curved, if you get far enough away from me, eventually I'm not going to be able to see. You're going to disappear from the bottom up because you're going to be going around to the other side of the planet.
It'll look like I'm sinking.
It'll look like you're sinking, but
yeah.
You're not. You're actually on top of the water, but you're so far away that,
That's a lot of water.
Yeah. So his friend got about 6 miles out into the water, and he's like, I can see this guy perfectly fine. Clearly, the Earth is flat, like I've always thought. And he came up with what could be the coolest word I have ever heard. Well, okay, I'm going to give you, he came up with the coolest theory, and then his pseudonym, I don't want to ruin this because it is absolutely amazing. Okay, so the theory is the coolest word. And I'm going to butcher this as well, zetetic astronomy. Zetetic.
Zetetic.
Yeah. And this theory was published under the pseudonym Parallax.
That's a good name.
Yeah. Now, Charlie, given on what we just talked about here, what year would you think this came about? Let's bear in mind parallax here.
Parallax.
Yeah.
It sounds like a bad sci-fi movie from the 80s.
It sure does. Yeah.
I would say 37.
Okay. This was actually released in 1849.
1849.
I know, parallax. So, as an aside, I feel like parallax is the mystical fear that the Green Lantern Corps keep at bay. Am I? It's something like that. Okay. Yeah, I just, anyways. So, yeah, we're gonna look that up. If there's only some way to find that out, but I don't know if Google works in the man cave that we're hanging out in. The theory suggests that, the Zetetic Astronomy, written by Parallax, suggests that Antarctica itself is not the continent we've come to believe, but in fact a giant circular wall that encloses the entire world. So basically, just imagine a white lifesaver, like one of those, kind of like one of those ones you get at Christmas time. It's like
icy mint.
Icy mint.
Yeah.
Imagine one of those, little green thing in the middle. If it was a little bit bigger, took up a little bit more of the inside of the circle, that would be the planet. And all of the that ice wall keeps the oceans in, keeps all the people from falling away, and is protected by the government. So you can't just run up there and see it. And those who have been shot, you've never heard of again.
So the government is kind of like the Night's Watch.
They're the Night's Watch. They are very fact. They're keeping a close eye on the wall. And now there's some things about this, of course, because we look up into the sky during the day, and there's my old foe, the sun, and then at night there's the dark blessed moon, and it's like, well, okay, so how do they fit into this kind of snow globe theory? Well, they're both 32 miles approximately in this is from the website. They're both approximately 32 miles in diameter, and they orbit the North Pole. So it's kind of like a tetherball thing, ball swinging around. Mm-hmm. That's the sun and the moon. Yeah, and no one knows what's beyond the ice wall. In fact, there could be
wildlings.
Yeah, this could be all there ever was, or there's wildlings. There could be, there could be a million things. It's really, really hard to say. The key parts of this theory are that the sun, the moon, and all the stars are like just kind of like tiny little balls flying around in the sky, like really, really tiny. This is the one where science kind of takes exception, but gravity does not exist. So things do fall. Yeah, we all know that. But the theory of gravity itself is based on spinning weight pulling things. So I know you can feel a certain level of attraction, but there's actually a physical attraction between us where I'm pulling you towards me.
Oh, you better believe it.
I know, right? So, we're all being pulled towards the ground because the Earth is bigger than us. We're being constantly pulled towards the sun because the sun's bigger. That's sort of the theory of gravity. Now, the theory of gravity, when you are believing in flat Earth, it doesn't work. Some people have said that what happens is that the disk itself is flying upwards at an extremely fast rate. So everything falls down because we're all actually, it feels like we're sitting still, but the Earth is flying, escalating upwards through space. And if you drop something, it's just kind of catching up to where everything else was.
Like being on an elevator.
Like being on an elevator.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. So you're not actually, you're just flying around in a little box. It's just like an elevator. The moon landing, of course, was faked because that would be, the moon is 32 miles. It's not really something you need to get up. We've never been to space, and astronauts are lying or have been lied to themselves. And all the pictures from space have been altered. Everything referring a globe is fake. Now, here are a few sample questions and answers from the Flat Earth Society website. And there's one at the end here that I was like, oh my, because it really is fascinating. Okay, so first question, are you serious? And the answer is yes. Second question, is the Flat Earth connected to any religion? And the Flat Earth Society, says, while almost every religion shares a common worldview of a dome-shaped Earth, we have no official connection with any established religions. However, it would be impossible to deny the strong historical ties with Christianity by past presidents of the society. Okay, now I'm going to try to read this next one in one breath here. What is some of the evidence you have? There are several readily apparent proofs of the planet's flatness. The horizon always rises to meet eye level, which is impossible on a ball Earth. The surface of bodies of water have been shown to be level. If the Earth was a globe, this would not be the case. There is no visible curvature to the horizon, even from airplanes. We don't even have a full shot of the Earth rotating from space. One almost has to ask, is there any real evidence the Earth is a globe? Our library has a great selection of books that further detail proof of the planar Earth. Okay.
Made it.
Yeah, holy, right there. So the evidence is, part of the evidence is, well, you prove to me that it's a ball, which, you know, that's a good stance. What about pictures from space? The answer, there are a plethora of resources available that show us we can't trust the photographic evidence from organizations such as NASA. Some of the evidences that these should be discontinued include constant change in their depiction of the Earth, inconsistent lighting and mood footage, and other irregularities which are discussed in depth by those who believe the moon landing was a hoax. The moon landing being a hoax is a whole other theory that we'll get into in a couple episodes here, but it's funny. This is a great example of how one theory will overlap with another. The next theory we're going to talk about has a ton of overlap. Okay, what about astronauts? Most flat earthers think astronauts have been bribed or coerced in their testimonies. Some believe they have been fooled or are in fact mistaken. Now, the big question here, why would people lie about the shape of the Earth? And they got a couple reasons here. To maintain legitimacy. During the Cold War, we faked the moon landing. Shortly after they realized this reason they could not reach the moon was due to the flatness of the Earth. They were stuck in a lie and had to continue it or lose legitimacy of our governments. Even today, we would still hold on to this lie due to role science plays in our ruling government. I just copy and pasted this, but I feel like maybe there is some. Yeah. Okay, number 2, why would people lie about the shape of the Earth? To hide the truth of the Bible. Number 3, why would people lie about the shape of the Earth? To gain power and money. That's where the money is. By siphoning off the space budgets and denying the world the resources of the Antarctic, they gain a considerable amount of power and wealth. So these flat earth people believe that the Antarctic, one of the reasons that there's like nobody's living there's no countries laying claim to it, you know, it doesn't belong to anybody, is because that's the ice wall, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So there could be all kinds of resources there and we can't have it because that's the ice wall. Mm-hmm. Now, this is the one that I mentioned that I'm kind of like, So the last one here being, why would people lie about the shape of the Earth? What does the map of the Earth look like then? And the answer is, as evidenced by the logo of the United Nations, the Earth is a round disk of indefinite dimensions. The geographic North Pole is located in the center of the disk, and the Antarctic lies around the outer edges. Now, when I saw that, I was like, what are they talking about? And if you look at the UN symbol, it's a big white circle with all the continents laid out flat. So it's kind of like, it's like a secret message to all those flat earthers out there. Yeah, pretty exciting stuff.
I want to take a look.
You go ahead and take a look. I'm not sure how he's looking this up because I was told there's no Google in the cave.
I have a single outgoing line.
Okay.
Yeah, that looks like a flat earth to me.
That sure does, right? Mm-hmm. Moments like that are funny when someone looks something up because it's like, you can just kind of listen to us breathing, like.
Yep.
All right. So now, quick pop quiz, hot shot. The second subject that we're going to talk about today. Do you remember what I said it was?
Oh yeah, I can't wait for lizard people.
The lizard people. Well, the reptile people. Got to be specific here.
Is lizard people not the preferred nomenclature?
No, it's actually, apparently they prefer to be called the Archons or the Anunnaki. I'm kind of, we'll get to that. But if you're going to address the Babylonian Brotherhood, All right, so the second thing we're going to talk about here, and this is the one that I was saying has overlap. Basically, any kind of shady organization like, oh man, what about the Illuminati? That's in here. What about that family that makes war? They're in here. Like, what about the royals? They're in here. Actually, there's even stuff about the moon landing and the moon itself being a key factor of this. I've often wondered how much overlap when someone believes, for example, someone's like, I'm a flat earther and golly, that reptile people holds water. But then you get to the part where they're differing on interpretations about the moon, like which one wins out. But that's neither here nor there. Okay, so the reptile people. Mm. There's a lot of factors involved in this one. And basically each aspect of this theory needs a separate explanation. So they will function as an introduction to a much deeper theory. I'll come back and explain this in subsequent episodes. The reptile people theory is the belief that there are creatures who have been on the earth for a very long time that seek to control, enslave, and ultimately destroy humankind. They currently control the world's monarchies, religions, governments, and celebrities. Mm-hmm. In fact, many of the most well-known figures in the world have actually been these reptile people who can temporarily take different forms. Mm-hmm. Now, there is a celebrity in here, and if I can get through when I get to that part, it's just not the celebrity you think is actually a shape-shifting reptile. Okay. This theory was put forth by the English writer and former footballer and sports journalist David Icke. Are you familiar with David Icke?
I do not know David Icke.
Are you familiar with football?
I am. What is football?
Are you? We just had the World Cup the other day. Did you?
Yes, I know a little bit about it.
Okay, yeah. That's a good
That's
time.
about it, though.
Yeah, okay. You're aware that it exists. That it's a thing that people do.
And it just happened, and everybody was real excited.
That's right. There's balls. There's feet.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's kicking. Mm-hmm. Yep.
There's some people are allowed to use their hands. Some aren't. Mm-hmm.
You can use your head.
Yeah, you can use your head. And I was just going to say,
scissor kicks are a thing.
Anytime I played soccer when I was a kid, or I didn't really start calling it football until I got to the UK, and my family was like, "You can't call it soccer," and then the slapping starts.
Sure,
but I'd somehow the ball would be on the ground rolling towards me, and I'd get ready to kick it away, and it would like fly up and hit me in the face every single time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just multiple concussions when I was a kid. Okay, so David Icke was this famous footballer and sports journalist. That's a great, job title, footballer. I'm a footballer, a baller. He has sold, and this is where it gets crazy. You haven't heard of David Icke, you said? Okay. Now, this is where it gets crazy. He is, crazy and exciting. I'm not trying to judge the, He has sold millions of books, and he has been translated into 11 languages and continues to do lecture tours to this day, including through Canada, like recently. So it might not be the kind of thing that you,
what are his books? How to Football?
No. Well, we'll get to the books, but I don't know if he wrote any books on footballing, but he might have wrote. He might have written some books on balling. Yeah. Anyways, there's not a lot of football in this theory, although there could be, because there could be some of these. Actually, that's an interesting thing. I should look up if there's a connection.
Was he a good?
Apparently, he was good.
Footballer?
I don't know. He was famous enough to.
He's a good player.
Because usually when you're a sports journalist, it's like the guys on Sportsnet or whatever.
Right.
Like they're like, hey, he was a good guy, and or she was a good girl, and they seem jovial, and we should just get them on our show to talk about curling or whatever. And
right.
Like that Kevin Martin guy. Who you're obviously big guy. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Big deal, which is, I guess, in the circles that are into this, he's kind of like this is a very popular thing. He makes a living doing it. All right. Now, like I said, there's a lot of aspects to this, and we're going to discuss it more as we get along. But this part of it, I'll just get right into it here. Inside his interdimensional theory is the belief that the reptilian shapeshifters, aka the Archons or Anunnaki, have taken over the Earth, bred human hybrids with certain families, and formed something called the Babylonian Brotherhood in order to keep humans in a constant state of fear. Now, the reason they keep the people in the constant state of fear is because they feed off of the negative energy that fear creates. I know, right? Because, yeah, that sounds like a little snack. I could scare you and have a snack. I could be like, hey, man, the world is warming ever so slightly over the next... Oh, jeez.
Yum. Like Cool Ranch.
You took a snack on me that time.
Cool Ranch. Andrew.
Some Cool Ranch fear. Icke has stated many times conclusively that he is not using allegory for influence or anything, and sees himself as a freedom fighter. Oh, this is nice. Who believes the power of love, positive energy, and wearing certain colors of clothing can help protect humanity from the impending reptile apocalypse. Now, yeah, so when they're talking about allegory there, it's not like, okay, man, like, do you mean like they're reptiles? Like when someone's like, man, my lawyer's a shark, or he's like, no, these are they're reptiles, like they're cold-blooded, scaly reptiles. And yeah, he's like, I'm not. These aren't adjectives. These people they're reptiles.
It's not metaphor.
Yeah, there's no metaphor here. Okay, now this is a quote from an article from the Scotsman. When you get back into the ancient world, you find this recurring theme of a union between non-human race and humans, creating a hybrid race. So, for example, Hercules and both Thor come to mind, just right off the top. From 1998, I started coming across people who told me that they had seen people change into a non-human form. It's an age-old phenomenon known as shape-shifting. The basic form is like a scaly humanoid with reptilian rather than humanoid eyes. Yeah, that's the big thing. You look at someone's eyes, and if it's a reptile, we just made eye contact at like an odd moment, but if it's a reptile, you'd be like, wait a minute.
Well, we both had to check.
Yeah.
To make sure you weren't a reptile.
And you just scared me now, so you just had another snack. This is amazing. Oh, okay. Icke claims the first reptilian human breeding programs took place 200 to 300,000 years ago, perhaps creating Adam, and the third and latest 7,000 years ago. Icke claims the hybrids of the third program, which are more Anunnaki than human, currently control the world. He writes in his book, The Biggest Secret, that the brotherhood that controls the world today is the modern expression of the Babylonian brotherhood of reptile Aryan priests and, I'm quoting here, royalty. Okay. Now, as of 2003, the reptilian bloodline is claimed to have encompassed 43 American presidents, 3 British prime ministers, including Tony Blair and David Cameron. This is great. 2 Canadian prime ministers, including Brian Mulroney, whom Icke accused of also being a pedophile who sacrificed children. And the Prime Minister of New Zealand, several Sumerian kings and Egyptian pharaohs. And okay, here we go. Okay, so just think of celebrities and you're like, I bet that guy's actually a reptile. There's one at the end here, and I would be amazed if anyone listening or you, I'm not, would be like, I've got a list of like 10 celebrities in my head. This guy's not on there. Okay. Celebrities like Bob Hope, that's a bit of a dated one, Beyonce, Prince Philip, and Chris Christopherson. How great is that? Is
that the one?
That's the guy. Yeah, he's apparently he's a reptile.
Oh man.
Key bloodlines include the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, various European aristocratic families, the establishment families of Eastern United States, and the British House of Windsor. Icke confirmed in May 2016 that he believes the British royal family are in fact shape-shifting lizards who regularly consume human blood. He identified the Queen Mother in 2001 as seriously reptilian, and he said he had seen Ted Heath's eyes turn black while the two waited for a news interview in 1989. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to... Okay, I'm saving my opinion on this. Okay. Icke claims the Babylonian Brotherhood has created or controls the United Nations, there they are again, International Monetary Fund, Roundtable, Council on Foreign Relations, Chatham House, Club of Rome, Royal Institute of International Affairs, Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberg Group, who are like in everything, as well as the media, military, CIA, MI6, Mossad, science, religion, and the internet, with witting or unwitting support from the London School of Economics. So, Charlie, do you ever use the internet?
On occasion.
Yeah, way to support the reptile people.
Well, it sounds like they've got their tails in everything.
Icke attributes to the Illuminati or global elite include... So the thing he said, like he's like, okay, these guys and this brotherhood of reptiles They include the Oklahoma City bombing, Dunblane, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, the Columbine shootings, 9/11, 7/7, global warming, chemtrails, water fluoridation, the death of Princess Diana, the assassination of JFK, and Agenda 21. These incidents then allow them to respond in whatever way they intended to act in the first place. He believes that recent U.S. presidents George Bush Jr., Barack Obama, and Donald Trump are either hybrids themselves or willing participants. Now, I mentioned the moon earlier. Now, what we got here is that this is where the flat Earth people might get upset with the reptile people, supporter, believers. Mm-hmm. The moon is not actually the moon, right? Whoa.
Well,
I know. Okay, now brace yourself. The moon is a giant spacecraft. And from inside of this hollow spacecraft, that's where the reptile people go, and they kind of charge up in there, and they have an interdimensional porter controlled by the reptilians. So they're going to like fly back and forth to wherever they're from.
And like a wormhole?
It's like a transporter more than a wormhole, because I think you can. The idea being like, I'm going to go to this other dimension, not actually necessarily a physical place.
Oh,
I don't know. Now the moon, this is what Icke refers to as the moon matrix. So the moon matrix base for the reptile people is where they broadcast this. I guess it's kind of like a wavelength radio thing that's going to affect the left hemisphere of everyone's brain. And you're going to have like kind of like a matrix situation going on where everyone's seeing the same hologram at the same time. And we're all a part of it. And then we get afraid of something and they eat our fear. And it's just good times. Now, it's when people become aware of this, like if I'm like, wait a minute, maybe there really are reptile people living up in the moon. And then if I'm looking at Chris Christopherson and suddenly I see him like visibly change forms, that's because the broadcast from the moon is kind of starting to wear off on me and I'm waking up.
Right.
Now, David Icke basically sees himself as like a messiah figure, being like, I'm trying to just get everybody to safety here, rescue humanity, Mad Max style, just all at once. I know you all think I'm crazy, but you're the ones who are crazy. Yeah. And now eventually, and he went on some TV show a long time ago, I think in about 1990. And he came out wearing turquoise because that's the safest color.
Okay.
And explained how he was the son of a godhead. And that was his term. And then he came out a few years later with this thing about the reptile people. So yeah, it's an exciting time. Yeah. Okay, now for I don't know, we'll say 10 points for Gryffindor. If you can tell me what the third subject was.
Ooh, I remember it's a game. I remember what it is. It's a game, but I don't remember its name now because of all this other information.
Starts with a P.
I just want
Paul.
I just want to keep saying Galaga, but I know that's a different game.
It does sound like a lot like Galaga. It's called Polybius. So I apologize to Gryffindor. You don't get your 10 points.
Sorry, buddies. No. I don't even know that.
The third subject we're going to talk about today is Polybius, and this is just phenomenal. I should clarify that this is a bit more of an urban legend than an actual conspiracy theory, but it is a super fantastic story. The legend aspect of it. Okay, so we're of that age where we would have been kids when this eventually got phased out, but there was like a place that you could go maybe in your neighborhood, like a convenience store or the mall or something, to be like a little place where there was a bunch of arcades.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally.
And there'd be those huge big video cabinets, and like the controllers would be like usually a joystick, couple buttons. Mm-hmm. That'd be it. You put your quarters in, away you go.
They got a lot of my quarters.
Yeah. Oh, man, tell me about it. And some of these games would come and go. Like there was one, and I may have mentioned this to you before. It was called Splatterhouse. It was basically, amazing. Sure. The Max in Grand Prairie had it for like, I swear, like a week. And I was going every day. I'm like, oh man, this is like the greatest game I've ever played. And and then they took it out and the guy's like, well, it wasn't making any money. I'm like, what? I've been
You got my entire allowance.
you all got all my allowance, man. And that used to incense me. And then I thought about it years later. I was like, that was only like $10. I mean, that's not, considering how much bloody expensive games they must have been. Holy, but. And we are drinking, what do we have in here, Charlie?
Well, we're drinking from the Phillips Brewery.
Yeah.
You've got a raspberry wheat ale.
Raspberry.
And I've got a nice can of Tiger Shark here. A re-envisioned pale ale. Tastes kind of like grapefruit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's delightful on this hot summer day.
It does. In fact, I'm not normally one for fruity beers, but this is satisfying. Mm-hmm. That's quite nice. Well, cheers to friends.
That's right.
All right, Polybius. Okay, so
Bitch Polybius.
Yeah. So the theory is basically there was this kid. I think it was in Portland. The place where it actually changes happens all like it changes stories. And this kid's like, and there was a kid in every arcade. And there was one in Grand Prairie. I can still picture him in my head, who was like Fred Savage's little brother in that, in that game or in that movie, whatever, where they played Mario 3 and everyone was like, The Wizard. Amazing. Yeah. And people would go in and be like, they would go in just to watch these kids play. And then there was one of these guys who was just super good and went in there and he was like kind of dropping out of school to go play video games and stuff like that. And then at one point he decided, you know what, like I'm kind of done with all these. Like I've played everything in here. I've beaten everything. There's not really any more of a challenge for me. And basically he walked into his arcade the one day and there was this weird looking like all black cabinet. He describes it and it had the word Polybius written on it. And the control wasn't a joystick and a bunch of buttons, but the control was like some kind of keyboard interface or something like that. He started playing and he was like, this is a really advanced game. And it wasn't like you weren't like sliding along at the bottom, like shooting up at things. Like it wasn't Space Invaders or anything like that. It was a really high concept kind of puzzle game. And when you would finish the level, there would be these like really bright lights and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And he's like, man, he's kind of like the Reptile people where these bright lights are shining at him. And he's like, this is feeding me, feeding my heart. Maybe that's what they meant by the Reptile people. They're like not feeding, like physically feeding, but like feeding their sense of being,
right?
Like
acquiring knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So he's like, oh, I can feel it coming into me. And, so he gets to a certain level and then he's like, uh-oh, like something, the screen went all black as the story goes, as one of the story goes. And he's like, I feel really weird. I need to go home right now. Goes home and just passes out, like falls asleep, wakes up in a completely black room. And he's like, I'm not in my house. I'm not at my parents' place. Like, I don't know what's going on here. And he realizes that he's like chained to a wall or he's chained to the floor or something like that. And then this kid comes in and helps him escape. And then they run through this like maze and they get out. So this is the kid that was playing the game. I feel like I've really rambled off into something here. He runs through this maze, comes out through this opening and he's like, look at all this grass. Look at these trees. It's the middle of the night. What are we doing way out in the woods? Like far away from my home. And how did I get here? And this kid who helped him is like, you go ahead. I'll be right behind you. Just keep running. And they both take off. But the guy somehow gets in front of the other kid who he never really saw because it was dark. Never sees the kid again. Couldn't really describe what happened to him. But somehow this kid got him out of wherever he was in. Goes home and his parents are like, you've been gone for a week. And like, where the hell have you been? And he's like, well, I was playing this game and I don't know what happened. And they're like, what game? And they go back to the arcade. Game's gone, cabinet's gone. Mm-hmm. Owner's like, we never had that game. I don't know what you're talking about, you crazy kid. And other kids are like, yeah, there was a game, but like it was like a black cabinet. It was only in here for like a day. And then they're like, you shut up, you shut your mouth. And then the guy that owned the place turns up dead like a week later.
Right.
Place gets shut down. No one ever sees the cabinet. No one ever knows anything about it. And then years and years and years later.
Well, hold on. What year was that?
That is a very good question. I want to say early 80s.
Yeah.
And the thing that I was reading today was saying that it was 1981.
Okay.
1981. But that seems like a strange. One of the things I was reading was it was talking about how this theory had come out, or this legend had come out very close to the movie The Last Starfighter.
I was going to say that's pretty much what The Last Starfighter was going for, right?
Without the like it was basically the same idea,
right?
Kind of a darker take on it. So they got this thing, and the kid shows up, the guy dies, and the parents are like, well, he's still alive. And then there's different accounts there. They're like, oh, this kid, like, he grew up and he was like a depressed alcoholic. Nobody ever believed him. And then he would hold the secrets. He'd be like, I'll know if anyone is telling the truth. Because as soon as this became famous, people were like, I played that game too, man. And he was like, really?
Of course.
Tell me what the gameplay was like. And they're like, there was and he's like, yeah, no.
There were snakes?
Yeah.
No snakes.
No
Get
snakes.
out of here.
Get out. You're out of here. Yep. There's a bunch of blocks. And he's like, no blocks.
No, that was Tetris.
Yep.
Fuck off.
That's right. So he knows. And the whole thing was because, it changes from Portland. There's all kinds of, there's a Mexican connection in the next part here, but like it would have happened all over the place. At the same time, though, it has to be pointed out that this is a bit of a, so we're going to segue out here for a second, but the Americans had this thing called MK Ultra. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with the MK Ultra program?
Yes.
Okay. Basically they would say, we're gonna brainwash these guys using drugs, we're gonna show them stuff, we're gonna keep them awake and experiment on them, basically. And they knew that this could work and could do weird things to people. So, and that was a conspiracy theory for years and years and years.
Oh, the idea is to turn them into super weapons, right?
And the idea it's kind of like the Manchurian Candidate, right, or the Winter Soldier.
Sure.
There's a lot of that kind of stuff. And it's really not that far-fetched to think that maybe the government was like, we could put a bunch of like weird, bleeps and bloops that would make someone go all, snippy snap. And if we did it to kids when their brain is especially sensitive, that'd be great. And then if you took that and paired it with someone who maybe was already kind of dealing with some issues, like a kid who was like, I'm not going to go to school. I'm just going to go to the arcade and play games all day. Like they're just the kind of the perfect storm of this stuff. So I guess I would say that there is some stuff here that's like, they're sort of a little all over the place, but the urban legends in there are some fascinating nuggets of truth. I guess we can call it that. Just throwing out some nuggets there.
Nugs.
Now, so this story was like, oh, isn't that neat? Blah, 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 blah. And actually, there's a few pop culture references where there's an episode of The Simpsons and Bart is in an arcade and the Polybius game is like right beside him and he's playing it. And I'll include that in the episode description as well. It's great. But that was pre-internet. That would have been like early 90s. 2006, the internet is really starting to take off. And like it had been going for a long time, but like sort of social media is picking up. People are getting online like they never have before. This happened in the 80s, and then like 20 years go by, maybe even more, and this story sort of popped up online, and people are like, oh, look at this. I've got, like, here's a picture I took with Polybius. I was in the arcade that day, and, and here's the jail where this kid was kept, and here's a picture of the cabinet. And this guy went on a forum in 2006 and said, he's like, I'm this German guy. I worked for a Mexican company and we were told by the government to like do this stuff and we didn't realize it was going to work so well. And then the thing with the kid happened. So we killed the guy that owned the store and we took the cabinets and And then, but the interesting thing was he published like some code, some like actual, I don't know. You're the computer guy. Some code
from the game.
Some code from the game. I guess. That makes sense. Not like up, up, down, down.
No, not the Konami
right?
code, but the code that
like the code itself.
Put the game together. Yeah.
Yeah. So he posted some of that, and people were like, "Wow, that actually is like really interesting." And apparently, it. Now I know I'm going to say this wrong. There is a Sinus Sloshin site in existence. So he claimed to have been working with the Sinus Sloshins, who were from Germany, I want to say. I don't know. And
somewhere European for sure.
Yeah, that's Europe. That sounds
European.
That sounds French to me. Sinneschlossen. No, I'm just I'm not sure. Anyways, that's the thing. So this guy shows up. He's like, "Oh, here's a bit of the code. I actually did this stuff, and I got fired, but it's been long enough now." And then he disappears from the internet. People try to find him, and
he shouldn't have said anything.
I know he shouldn't have said a damn thing. He should have kept his damn fool mouth shut. Now, these games, a lot of these games are designed straight from the 80s, right off the bat. They knew that the what do you want to call it, the graphics and everything were crap. But one of the goals from games right from the very beginning was like fun is fun. Mm-hmm. Fun is fun. Fun's always fun. Fun's fun. Comedy is fun. But one of the best ways to get, especially teenagers, addicted to things like video games is to make it like kind of scary,
sure,
kind of realistic, and have like an effect on you where you're like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm liking it, And so you're playing this game, and then you see it now where you're playing some games, and you're like, was I actually playing for 6 or 7 hours? What's happened? Who went to work for me? Why am I getting fired? And that can definitely happen. So the people are like, well, this is where that all began, man. And so, yeah, basically that's the Polybius theory. One of the most interesting things most important things to note about this theory is that it showed up, like I said, around the last Starfighter. And then the theory itself was essentially silent until the beginning of the internet. So that's like every other conspiracy theory that I'm aware of, with just like the big popular ones are like, it's usually going for that entire time, but this one went blank for like 20 years, which is kind of it didn't research so much as it was like, this is why no one our age has ever heard of this before, even though we would have been the kids who were affected by this. All right, then. Well, do you know what it's time for?
What's it time for?
It's time for opinion time.
Opinion time.
Yeah, opinion time. Isn't that nice?
Opinion time, opinion time. Hey everybody, it's opinion time. Opinion time, opinion time. Hey everybody, it's opinion time.
So, I guess now that we've talked about this here, what are your feelings on the flat Earth theory?
I don't really go for the flat Earth thing. I just think that when they came up with it, they weren't thinking big enough.
Sorry, do you mean when Parallax came up with it?
When Parallax came up with it, which is such a great name.
It's so
we got to see if there's a movie named Parallax. I don't think that they were thinking big enough. I don't think that they had the, the allegory of the cave,
Yeah.
They couldn't see the bigger thing because, they couldn't get up high enough to see. They're just in a lake somewhere. And they're like, oh, yeah, my buddy's at the other side of the lake. That's pretty far, but that's like nothing.
No, so I think if I may, what you're saying is like the experiment itself is flawed because it wasn't on a big enough scale anyways. But also, this is going to be one of those things where it's like, look, I believe water is wet because I can like touch it.
Right.
Like every morning I wake up and I'm like, hey, that's not. Whoops, I've had another accident and it's wet. And I can tell every time. And I believe that the sky is blue because I can see it. But so you're kind of saying like the Earth being round, it's like, well, you're looking at the ocean. You're like, that looks like a flat line to me.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's only as flat insofar as our eyes can perceive it because our eyes can't perceive enough.
Right. Like they can't see. They're actually pretty damn useless as compared to like.
Yeah, even with your binoculars that you're peeping on me with.
What? Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's
just
fine.
That's
fine.
my Tuesdays.
But, still.
Yeah. I feel like this one is one of those ones where I think they all are, but this one in particular, Flat Earth, feels to me like a bit of like I want to be in a special club that believes something so outrageous just to set myself aside a little bit. It would be like one of those things where it's like you want to be. You're definitely identifying. You're saying I don't believe in the science that was given to this.
This is more for a shocking,
like it is
reason.
That's kind of what I mean. Like you're like I'm rejecting the foundations of science, basically. Like gravity is not a thing.
Yeah, you're like I'm not very interested in your science. I'm going to do something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess with that, you're like, the hard thing is that, and this is probably going to come up quite often, the books like the Bible do refer to the flat earth and
Do they?
corners of the earth.
That's actually something I thought about when you mentioned it, but I didn't bring it up. But like, do they mention in the Bible a flat earth?
There is. It's not that there's nothing about the flat earth being flat, or the ice wall, or the North Pole, or the government, keeping everybody away from the Antarctic. But what it is, it refers to the four corners of the earth, and that's kind of one of the
people took that literally.
They took that literally. So this is going to be one of those examples where you're like, okay, are there parts of the Bible that are written metaphorically, and some are
right? Did Noah get all the animals onto the ark?
All of the animals.
That's a big ass boat.
That's a big boat.
Yeah,
yeah. And I can't help but feel that this one really does have it just has like a, hey, look at me, I just reject everything and it's crazy, but I just, like almost like what you said, like a shock value thing, like.
Well, I think especially nowadays with all the, I mean, sure they have answers as to why the evidence nowadays is invalid, but I mean, have they been in an airplane before? Like.
Yeah, and there are guys that have done some interesting things where there's instruments that you can use to measure the curvature of the earth. So there's one guy flew from like, I don't know, one city to another city, took one of these things measuring the curvature of the earth up with him. And he's like, look, it's staying the same level, blah, blah, blah. I'll find that video and I'll post in the episode description as well. But it's basically, the guy says, if the earth was curved, then during this entire thing, I would have like seen it. And then there's this other idea that there's examples like, I don't remember the bridge off the top of my head. I think it's in the States, might be in Europe. I don't know. This is a massive suspension bridge. And one side has to be something like 43 millimeters taller than the other, because it's so long that is how much it has to be to maintain a flatness across. But that is, we're talking about a huge distance and an incredibly incremental, difference in what do you want to call it, in height, in difference. And then, I mean, if you're seeing a boat go away, that's why you see them disappear from the bottom up.
Right.
Like it looks like they're sinking, but they're staying on the wall, Yeah. Anyways, so it's one of those things. I don't know.
I think Johnny Parallax was wrong. I don't think he could get it. It's too little, too small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reptile people.
More believable.
A little more believable.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay. Especially with when you have certain social figures like you have a Trump or something like that, right? And
or a blood-sucking queen.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think she puts out less fear than Trump, or say a Hitler or something like that, who could also have been one of the... What was the correct names for them?
The correct name is the Archons, or Archons, or Anunnaki.
Anunnaki, yeah. Yeah.
And then there's, but the Babylonian Brotherhood is the name of the group.
Brotherhood, okay.
Yeah. They're just, if it is, it's not hard to imagine that there could have been a competing form of life on the planet at one time that was like.
Well, I mean, if you just look at the theory of evolution in and of itself, what's next for us, right? Oh. Maybe it's lizard people, maybe
reptiles.
It's reptiles, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we just start really liking heating rocks more,
We could, and really being a reptile, is that all that bad? Is that all that bad? I mean, aside from eating off the fear of the
when
others,
we were fish, were we thinking like, monkeys? Is that crazy? Walking around on four, being a amphibious mammal or type thing, wandering around on the shore. Is that so bad?
Well, and I guess the thing is here is that these guys are, they're getting blamed for all the, the Oklahoma City bombing, the 9/11, like all this like horrible stuff. They're controlling MI6 and Mossad and all this. But there's good things that happen.
Sure.
They could be in on that too. That could be part of the whole thing. Like these kids that got rescued from the cave, the Thai cave kids. That could have been a bunch of reptiles getting down in there, just doing their thing. because people were saying it was an impossible situation, and then it happened. Huh?
Right.
You know, but those kids, they were plenty afraid. So, you know.
Well, and I mean, for any new race to evolve and reach a higher plane, you know, the strong survive out of it, and then the weaker ones don't make it, right?
Yeah, that is an interesting thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately. We are, as you know, there's been a birth in my family lately, and babies. It is amazing that we have continued to survive as a species. Like baby horses and elephants and other animals are like born running.
Yeah, and they can just walk around. I mean, they look stupid doing it, but they can do it.
They look a little silly, but like we come out and we are useless little lumps
of potatoes.
Like straight up, just like can't do for.
You can't do
like 2.5 years. You can't do
nothing.
You can't. You're just, you know, and like it's one of those things where it's like, from a strictly evolutionary standpoint, it's like, how did we, you know, that's a hard one. Because no matter how, like you get a guy like, I don't know, this is kind of an odd example to pick, but if you get like a prime physical specimen, like the black guy from Predator, not Arnold Schwarzenegger, but who's the other guy?
Carl Weathers?
Carl Weathers, yeah. But in the movie, he wasn't just like a soldier. He wasn't just super ripped. He was also like a thinker. He was a bureaucrat, a money man.
Right.
And he was
sexual
like
Tyrannosaurus.
Yeah, it's just, you know, and he probably impregnated hundreds, if not thousands, of the ladies. Now, no matter how supremely advanced from, you know, we're talking about a guy who could like kill everyone with a blink, he's still going to have these tiny little sacks of relatively useless blobs for about 2.5 years. And then after that, I'm sure the kids are like, all right, I'm taking over this place.
And then they just start raising themselves.
Yeah.
Become a super race.
Growing beards and being awesome. But they definitely, that would be that's the aspect of it where I'm like, you know, no matter how advanced you are. So maybe the only way to get over that is to breed with some lizard people and kind of start yourself off. You know?
And I mean, now here's the thing. If a lizard person was to show themselves to you in their true form, that's going to freak you out.
It's going to freak me right.
And there's only going to be like a 5% of people maybe who are going to be down with procreating with that kind of thing. So perhaps the disguises are necessary.
It could be. And you know,
to get in there and mix the genes up.
And you gotta break some eggs to make an omelet or whatever.
Right.
These things have got to happen.
You got to break some eggs to make a lizard baby.
So I in terms of Polybius, what are your feelings on Polybius here? How do you like that one?
Do you think that could have been one of the early accounts of viral marketing?
Well,
I mean, okay.
Yeah, I think you got a good point there, but
so the last Starfighter was in 1984.
Was it 1980? Okay, so
that's when it came out.
That feels like it's right around this time.
But if that's when it came out, then that means they were doing work for at least a year or two beforehand, or even a couple years for planning.
Yeah.
So not out of the time frame could line up so that they could have been like, well, if we figure out this story, we get a little bit of buzz.
Yeah. That's the thing with the, I guess with the 1981 timeline that was thrown out. We got to remember that we're basically talking about urban legend and putting a year on it. Like that's a hard thing to do.
Right.
It's probably, for sure. You're writing this down. You're like, I don't know, 81. And this whole thing could have, if it did in fact happen, it could be, could be 84, 85, 86.
Sure. Yeah.
1988 could have happened at the Calgary Olympics.
Right. It's not like it's a written down fact.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it's not like it, then that's the whole problem. Like in retrospect, but the fact that Last Starfighter really does line up with this is kind of unavoidable when you're considering it. In terms of these three theories, I'm pretty inclined to, I'm not saying I buy Polybius, but I'm like, that straight up could have happened. Like that legit, that's not, for me, I'm like, nah, that sounds like the government was proven to have experimented on people.
Right.
I don't think they're above experimenting on kids. And I think using kind of a brilliant thing of like, let's test mind control in the form of a cabinet,
Sure.
you know, video game at an arcade, you know, like, never mind, these experiments are expensive. You make a little money back from it.
Right.
You know?
Well, they're all government funded.
Yeah, I suppose
You're
so.
getting quarters back. You're getting little Andy's $10 allowance back.
Oh man, seriously, Splatterhouse, so good. If you haven't tried that game, please do.
I believe it then came out on Sega Genesis eventually.
It did, but it wasn't.
Not the same.
It was not the same. It had. I love the Genesis, and I was a Nintendo guy, and basically from the NES on, I've always been like, you got, you know, a little direction arrow pad, you got A and B.
Right.
That's about as much as I can handle.
Keep it simple.
Yeah. When I got my my Xbox One, I'm
many
like,
buttons.
how do I? And I tried to fly my father-in-law's drone last night, and I was like, what? Like, I could not believe how complicated the controller was. And all it was up and down, turn right and left, and go forward or backward. Unreal.
Well, I would say that you're not selling your attributes to the lizard people properly.
Oh, a little bit.
They might have to look past you.
They are going to sweep over me big time. Like in that regard. And I scare very easily.
Well, so they're going to keep you around, but they're going to keep you in the pantry is basically what's going to happen when they need a snack. They're just going to open the door and say boo, and you're going to fill them right up.
I do have to go back to this one point here that I really, really like. It is always interesting. Any good conspiracy theory has like, there'll be one part of it that you're like, okay, that part's true, or that part's interesting, or that, you know, there's a tug on that. And this thing of the map of the Earth, which happens to look exactly like what the flat Earth people are describing, like the United Nations logo looks just like the flat Earth people. Is that one of those things where if you had like a weird idea and then you saw something and it was like a symbol and you're like, is this how they're like, are they trying to like sneak this out? Is this like how the guy got the plans out of the Death Star? He's like, just going to give you a little clue. You're going to figure it out.
Put it out here. Maybe somebody will pick up this breadcrumb.
Yeah, right. So, and hopefully, and that's immediately where I went after I was reading it. I was like, there's some flat earther inside the UN that's like, I'll put it in the logo and then they'll figure it out. So, I don't know.
I don't know about that one. Okay, and to be completely honest, I'm wearing a shirt right now. That's the classic poster from the X-Files that says, I want to believe. And that is my opinion on a lot of these conspiracies, is that I want them to be real. I would love for some of this stuff to come down the pipe and, you know, be shown to us. And I'm going to say flat earthers is the one, the flat earth is the one that jibes with me the least.
It's a challenging concept for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lizard people? Maybe.
Hey, in principle, I'm on board. Like the people, you know, like just the name, like the reptile,
Anunnaki.
The Anunnaki, and they're like, you know, I just love that they eat fear.
Yeah.
You know, and the guy's like, he's like, I saw his eyes, they turned black the one time, and the guy's like, oh. Whoop.
And now, was there a specific reason that you put these three subjects together?
No, I don't think so. I think I just was like, we gotta get three that are interesting. I tried to pick one big one, one lesser known one, and then a third one, which would be like an urban legend or something like that. The format of this podcast, I'm hoping to do 3 per episode,
right?
And the last one will usually be like a urban legend or a person or a, you know,
right?
Like there's a lot. There's quite a few, but there's one. Like I told you, my Rolling Stones one, which we'll get to that eventually,
right?
And which I've only become more entrenched in because I've been trying to,
been digging up dirt.
I know, man. That's I'm going to blow that wide open. And the I mean, there's other things too. There's the there's always going to be interesting accounts. Before we started recording today, you were telling me about a manigator that you were going to go and visit.
Yeah,
and that's
his birthday party. Every year they have a big, big show for it. Festival.
So I think if you tell people what the manigator is, if I'm saying that correct.
I don't know if he had an actual name. Maybe Clarence. I'm not sure.
Clarence.
I don't know. I was supposed to go, but I never got to go see him.
But Clarence is a half.
It's a half man, half gator. that they throw a birthday party for every year in Seattle. Oh, we were supposed to go check them out, but that road trip got canceled. But the reason I asked why, like, if there was a reason that you put these three together, is because the potential that I couldn't really tie in the flat Earth thing, but that, say, the reptile people could maybe have something to do behind Polybius to help breed the fear.
Oh, wow.
To feed the machine.
Man, it's all about connecting the dots, right? Where there's connections where you don't.
I'll go get. I got some red yarn in the other room. I can go get if you want to start mapping this out.
Actually, there's a quote here. It's funny because I just stopped. I was scrolling through my thing here. This is from the Polybius article. People make connections between what the government was doing, the legend, and how they overlap. Flashing lights, disorientation, audio sensory confusion. I think somewhere in there is the kernel this has sprouted from. You could that little paragraph definitely describes, like I can feel the line of truth and justice going from just about anywhere to anything, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, not saying, just saying. I mean, it is all connected, right?
Yeah, cool, man. All right, well, I think that's going to be just about it. In the subsequent episodes, I would like to set up an email account, and I do have an email address, and we will include that. I'm just going to post that in after we finish this off here. But please feel free to email in at the address that we've provided if you have any questions or ideas for shows, or just if you have any comments about anything we talked about. And by all means, check us out online. There's going to be a Facebook page, a Twitter page. All this stuff is going to be available on however you get your podcasts usually, and
if they let
us do this, which I think,
well,
we're going to find out.
Maybe it's too sensitive.
It could be. This is some pretty hot stuff. My hand! I just burned it on the mic. So that's hot stuff. Just hot. Okay, we'll take care, everyone. Talk to you later.